My name is Natalie Parker. I'm 37 years old. And the strange thing about ruining your own life is that it rarely feels like ruin when it begins. At first, it feels like relief, like oxygen, like somebody opening a window in a room you didn't realize had gone stale. That's the lie, anyway. That's the lie I told myself for 6 months while I dismantled everything good in my life with the calm, steady hands of a woman who thought she was entitled to more. I had been with David for 11 years. We met when I was 25. He was 28, serious in a way that felt safe, funny in a way that never demanded attention, and kind in a way I was stupid enough to mistake for predictability. We never married. Life kept moving, and somehow the paperwork never seemed urgent. We built everything else instead: our routines, our children, our home, our habits, our ordinary little universe that looked almost perfect from the outside. Our daughter Emma was 8. Our son Jake was 5. We lived in a nice house in a quiet neighborhood with good schools and trimmed hedges and neighbors who smiled when they saw us loading groceries out of the car. David worked in finance, long hours, good money, reliable money, the kind of money that paid the mortgage, the school fees, the dentist appointments, the soccer cleats, the groceries I complained about buying, even though I never had to wonder whether our card would go through. I stayed home with the kids. That used to feel like a privilege. Somewhere along the way, I started treating it like a prison. We were fine. That was the truth. Not amazing, not cinematic, not passionate in the dramatic, feverish way people on social media pretend love should always be. But fine, stable, predictable, safe. And I convinced myself fine wasn't enough. It sounds monstrous now, written out this plainly, but back then it felt reasonable. That's the part people don't say out loud when they talk about betrayal. Most betrayals don't begin with hatred. They begin with self-pity, with the quiet, poisonous belief that your sacrifices are special, your boredom is tragic, and your desires should exempt you from consequences. It started 6 months before everything ended. A mom group from the gym. That's how stupid it sounds when I say it now. They were women I met between spin class and stretching, women who looked polished even at 9 a.m., who wore matching sets and expensive sneakers, and talked about their lives with the careless intimacy of people who had too much free time and too little gratitude. At first, I liked them because they made me feel visible. I wasn't just somebody's mother there. I wasn't just the woman remembering lunchboxes and permission slips and dentist reminders. I was Natalie, 37, still attractive, still interesting, still capable of being looked at. Or at least that's what I wanted to believe. They talked constantly about their husbands, exes, routines, frustrations, how boring everything was, how dead-long relationships became, how women like us gave too much and got too little. "You only live once," Maya said one morning, while we sat in the juice bar area after class, our protein drinks sweating onto the table between us. "Don't you want to feel alive again?" I laughed the first time she said it, but I remember the question stayed with me long after I got home. "Don't you want to feel alive again?" As if my life was already over, as if the small hands reaching for me every morning and the man who trusted me with everything were somehow evidence of emptiness instead of love. I started talking differently after that. Not at first in ways anyone else would notice, just little shifts, little complaints sharpened into grievances. David's long work hours became neglect in the stories I told. His consistency became dullness. His loyalty became something embarrassingly unsexy. I'd tell the women, "He's a good guy." And one of them would smirk and say, "Stable is code for boring." Another would add, "You deserve passion." And instead of defending him, I let those words settle somewhere inside me. I started dressing differently for the gym. Makeup, fitted clothes, hair done, even for a 40-minute class. I began posting more photos online. Not explicit, nothing obvious, just enough. Mirror selfies, gym shots, filtered smiles, little captions designed to sound effortless and accidentally inviting. The attention came quickly. Comments, messages, men sliding into my DMs with the confidence of strangers who sensed a weakness before I was ready to name it. It felt good. That's the ugliest part. It felt good to be wanted. Good to be seen as something other than a mother with laundry in the dryer and chicken thawing in the sink. Good to have people react to me like I was still the main character in my own life. Shy. One man was more persistent than the others. Ryan, younger than me. Fit. smooth in the way some men are when they've spent their whole adult lives practicing versions of the same lie. He knew exactly how to say things that sounded intimate without requiring any actual knowledge of me. Your boyfriend doesn't appreciate you, I can tell. You're too beautiful to be this unhappy. You deserve someone who makes you feel special. I knew what he was doing. I liked it anyway. That's the truth stripped bare. I liked how direct he was. I liked how easy it was to become a fantasy version of myself through a screen. I liked the way his attention asked nothing of me except vanity. We started messaging constantly. At school pickup. In the bathroom while Jake brushed his teeth. In the kitchen while dinner simmered. In bed beside David while he answered emails from work and assumed I was scrolling aimlessly. I deleted conversations, turned my phone face down, started taking it everywhere, even to shower, even to fold laundry, even to the backyard when Emma wanted help with chalk drawings on the patio. David noticed before he suspected. That's another detail I remember too clearly. One night he looked up from the couch and said, "You're always on your phone now." I smiled without missing a beat. Mom group stuff, planning events. He nodded. That was it. He believed me because David always believed me. That should have stopped me. His trust should have felt like a mirror held to my face. It should have embarrassed me back into being decent. But trust, when placed in the wrong hands, becomes an opportunity. And I was already becoming the kind of woman who mistook loyalty for weakness. 3 months before everything collapsed, Ryan asked me to meet him for coffee. Just coffee. That's what I told myself while getting dressed, while checking my reflection twice, while telling David I was running errands after dropping Jake at preschool. Ryan chose a cafe across town where nobody knew me. He smiled when I walked in like I had already done something brave instead of something pathetic. We talked for an hour, maybe less. I don't remember the conversation now, only the mood of it, the ease, the practiced attention, the way he leaned in when I spoke as if every sentence I said mattered. He made ordinary things sound profound. He laughed at the right moments. He touched my wrist once and let his hand linger half a second too long. When we walked out to the parking lot, I already knew what I wanted to happen. That's another lie women like me tell when we want to keep a shred of innocence. That things just happened. They don't. Not really. Usually there's a moment right before the line is crossed where you know exactly what you're doing. I knew. I wanted him to kiss me. Wanted him to look at me like I was still young enough, beautiful enough, dangerous enough to ruin something for. So he did. In his car. In a parking lot. Like two pathetic teenagers pretending secrecy made it romance. I drove home shaking. Not with shame, not yet, but with adrenaline. I remember walking into the house and hearing cartoons in the living room. Emma needed help with homework. Jake wanted a snack. David called from his office to ask if I could bring him the file he'd left on the kitchen counter before he headed to a client meeting. And I did all of it. Homework, snack, dinner prep, laundry, smiling. I played my role perfectly. That's what betrayal looks like most of the time. Not wild passion, not dramatic cruelty, just normalcy performed by someone already gone. I told myself it was just a kiss. One mistake. A wake-up call. Something selfish but survivable. It wasn't just one. Ryan and I started meeting twice a week. I told David I was at the gym, meeting friends for coffee, running errands, helping with school volunteer planning. I lied so smoothly it frightened me sometimes. Not enough to stop, just enough to recognize that I was getting better at it. Ryan had an apartment. We'd go there while the kids were in school and David was at work. Hours at a time. I'd come home and shower immediately. Then I'd make dinner, ask Emma about spelling tests, help Jake sound out words in his picture books, sit beside David on the couch while he rubbed my feet and asked if I was tired. I don't know which memory is worse now, the cheating itself or the tenderness I accepted from him afterward like I was still entitled to it. David never checked my phone, never followed me, never questioned my stories in any serious way. Because he trusted me completely. And I used that trust like a weapon. The women from the gym knew. Every one of them. They covered for me when needed. If David ever mentioned a class or meetup, one of them would confirm it casually. They made my lies easier. That made them feel like friends back then. You're glowing, Maya told me once. Ryan's good for you. David doesn't need to know. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. That line in particular disgusts me now. Because it wasn't true. I knew it wasn't true even then. Every time I looked at my children, I knew. Every time David kissed me goodnight, I knew. Every time Emma said, "Mommy, are you coming to school on Friday?" And I smiled and said, "Of course." I knew I was balancing our whole life over an open flame. And I kept doing it anyway. Last week, my last week as the woman I used to be, Ryan mentioned he had friends in town. 2 guys. He said we should all hang out. Something inside me recoiled immediately, not from morality. I wish I could claim that. No, what I felt first was fear, instinct, the animal sense that a line existed even lower than the ones I had already crossed. But once you've trained yourself to ignore that voice enough times, it gets quiet. Thursday night, I told David I had a girls' night planned. My standard excuse by then. He barely looked up from packing Emma's lunch for the next day. Have fun, he said. Text me if you'll be late. Simple, trusting, undeserved. I met Ryan and his friends at a bar downtown. I drank too much, laughed too loud, let myself feel young in that artificial, desperate way people do when they're trying to outrun the truth of who they've become. Ryan kept a hand at the small of my back. His friends flirted. I liked that too. God, I liked all of it. The recklessness, the validation, the illusion that I was someone other than a woman betraying the father of her children for male attention. Then Ryan said it. We should go back to your place. I froze. Your boyfriend works early Fridays, right? He added. He'll be asleep. I don't know, I said, though I already knew I was considering it. That's risky. Come on, he said with that easy grin. Live a little. You said he sleeps through everything. He did. Heavy sleeper. Always had been. Our bedroom was upstairs. The guest room downstairs. The kids' rooms at the far end of the second floor. The house suddenly rearranged itself in my mind into opportunity and silence and distance. I should have said no. I didn't. We got to my house at 3:17 a.m. I remember the time because it's burned into me now. I checked the Ring app before opening the door. It looked inactive, just like it usually was at night because David hated pointless motion alerts. See, I said, smiling in a way that makes me sick to remember. He's asleep. We're fine. I unlocked the door. Quiet, dark, still. Ryan and his two friends followed me inside, into my living room, my kitchen, my home. The same house where Emma's backpack hung on the entry hook and Jake's tiny sneakers were lined unevenly by the stairs. The same walls that held framed family photos. The same couch where David and I had watched movies with the kids curled between us on rainy weekends. We drank more, talked in low voices. Ryan kissed me on the couch. One of his friends glanced at the framed picture on the wall, me, David, the kids at the beach last summer, and laughed. Your boyfriend's a lucky guy, he said. Then he smirked. Or unlucky, depends how you look at it. They all laughed. And I laughed too. That laugh still haunts me more than almost anything else, because in that moment I heard the cruelty of it and joined it anyway. Eventually we moved to the downstairs guest room, away from where David slept, away from where my children slept, as if distance could make depravity cleaner. For an hour, I became someone I can barely stand to describe now. Someone reckless and hollow and thrilled by being wanted by men who had no respect for me because I had no respect for myself. At 4:30 a.m., they left, quietly, carefully. I locked the door behind them and stood in the silence with my heart pounding hard enough to make me dizzy. Then survival instinct kicked in. I cleaned everything, wiped counters, sprayed air freshener, stripped the guest bed, started the wash, checked the floor for anything left behind. I moved through the house like a criminal trying to erase a version of herself. Then I went upstairs. The hallway was dim. Jake's nightlight cast a soft blue glow under his door. Emma's room was silent. The house smelled faintly of detergent and whatever floral spray I'd used too aggressively downstairs. I slipped into bed beside David. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't wake. I remember lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my pulse slowly settling, relief spreading through me in one shameful wave after another. I thought I'd gotten away with it. I thought morning would come and I'd make pancakes or pour cereal or complain about being tired and life would continue because I was clever enough, careful enough, lucky enough to avoid consequences. I didn't know yet that some people can lie all night and still forget the one thing that matters. Not everyone sleeping beside you is asleep. At 7 a.m., his alarm went off. The same sound it had made every weekday for years. Sharp, mechanical, ordinary. For a second, I thought that meant I was safe. That everything had reset overnight. That the version of me who crossed that line downstairs didn't exist anymore. That I could just step back into my life. David reached over, silenced the alarm, and sat up slowly. No rush, no confusion, no grogginess. Just calm. That was the first thing that felt wrong. He didn't look at me right away. He stood, walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and moved through his morning routine with the same quiet precision he always had. Water running, closet door opening, hangers sliding, the small, familiar sounds of a normal Friday morning. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart beating just a little too fast. Something in the air had changed. I didn't know how to name it yet, but I could feel it, like pressure building behind glass. When he came back into the bedroom, dressed for work, he didn't pick up his phone. He didn't check his emails. He didn't ask if I was making breakfast. He sat down on the edge of the bed. And then he said it. I need you to pack a bag and leave. For a moment, my brain didn't process the words. They sounded misplaced, like they belonged in someone else's life. What? I sat up, pushing the covers back, blinking at him. What are you talking about? His expression didn't change. Pack your things. You have 20 minutes. The room tilted slightly. David, He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and turned it toward me. I saw it before I fully understood it. The grainy black and white footage. The timestamp in the corner. 3:17 a.m. My stomach dropped so violently I thought I might be sick. There I was, opening the door, letting them in. Ryan behind me. Then the two other men. The camera angle shifted. Living room, kitchen, hallway, guest room. Every angle, every movement. Every lie I told myself I had hidden. You said the ring was off, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I turned it back on last week, he said. Still calm, still controlled. Motion activated, silent notifications. The silence between us thickened until it felt like it might suffocate me. David, I can explain. That was the first thing I said. The stupidest, most meaningless sentence in the English language. His eyes met mine then. And for the first time in 11 years, I saw something in them I had never seen before. Not anger, not even heartbreak. Finality. You brought 3 men into our house, he said quietly, while our children were sleeping upstairs, while you thought I was asleep in that bed. My throat closed. There's nothing to explain. His voice didn't rise. That made it worse. Please, I said, the word breaking apart as it left my mouth. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. He stood up. You brought them into our home, he repeated. Our kids' home. That's what it meant. I started crying then. Not the kind of crying that comes from understanding. The kind that comes from fear, from consequences. From the sudden, overwhelming realization that everything you built is about to collapse and you can't stop it. David, please, I'm sorry, 20 minutes, he said, walking toward the door. You can't... I will call the police for trespassing if you're still here after that. I froze. You can't kick me out. I live here. This is my house too. He paused in the doorway. No, he said without turning around. It's not. My chest tightened. My name is on the deed. I bought this house before you moved in. You have no legal right to be here if I don't want you here. The words hit harder than anything else so far, because they were true. What about the kids? I said, my voice rising, desperate. What about Emma and Jake? They're staying here, he said, where they're safe. The implication landed like a slap. Safe? I repeated. From me? He turned then. And there it was again, that same cold, unwavering clarity. You brought 3 strange men into their home at 3 a.m, he said. Yes, from you. My knees felt weak. You can't take my kids. I have video evidence, he said. Any judge will give me custody. I shook my head, tears blurring everything. David, please, I made a mistake. You made a series of choices, he cut in. For months. Each word precise. Measured. Controlled. This wasn't a mistake. It was who you decided to be. The room went silent, except for the sound of my own breathing. Sharp, uneven, desperate. What about my things? I asked, grasping at something, anything. My clothes, my stuff. Pack what fits in a suitcase. His voice didn't soften. I'll have the rest delivered wherever you end up. Wherever I end up. The phrase echoed in my head, hollow and terrifying. Where am I supposed to go? He didn't hesitate. Not my problem. I stared at him. At the man who had shared a bed with me for over a decade. Who had trusted me with his children, his home, his life. And realized I didn't recognize him anymore. Or maybe this was who he had always been when pushed far enough. You have 18 minutes now, he added. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the suitcase. I threw clothes into it blindly. Shirts, jeans, underwear, whatever I could grab. Nothing organized, nothing thoughtful, just survival. David stood in the doorway the entire time, watching, silent, a witness to the collapse I had caused. Can I say goodbye to the kids? I asked at one point, my voice breaking completely. No. The answer came instantly. They're asleep, you'll scare them. They're my children, I said weakly. You should have thought about that at 3 a.m. I flinched, because there was nothing to argue with, nothing to defend, nothing left. When I zipped the suitcase closed, it felt like sealing something permanent, like closing the lid on the life I used to have. David followed me downstairs, every step heavy, every second unreal. The house looked the same. That was the strangest part. Emma's backpack still by the door, Jake's shoes still crooked on the floor, a cereal bowl still sitting in the sink from the night before. Nothing had changed, except everything. Go, he said when we reached the front door. I hesitated. David, my lawyer will contact you today. He opened the door. Don't come back. Don't contact me directly. Everything goes through attorneys. Please, I whispered. He didn't respond. I stepped outside. The morning air hit my face, cold and sharp. I turned once, hoping, stupidly, desperately, that he might look at me differently, that something in him might break. It didn't. He closed the door, locked it. Just like that. I stood there for a second, staring at the house I had lived in for 6 years. The house where my children were still sleeping upstairs. The house I would never walk into again. Then I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and realized I didn't have anywhere to go. At 8 a.m., Emma and Jake would wake up. They would ask where Mommy was, and David would have to decide how to answer that question. I drove anyway. No destination, just movement. Because staying there, sitting in that driveway, felt like admitting something I wasn't ready to face yet. By the time I checked into a cheap motel, my hands had stopped shaking. That was worse, because numbness meant reality was settling in. The room smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and something older underneath. I sat on the edge of the bed, suitcase at my feet, staring at nothing. Then my phone started ringing. David's lawyer. I didn't answer. A voicemail followed. Legal language. Immediate filings. Emergency custody hearing. My chest tightened again. Before I could process it, my phone rang again. Mom. I answered that one. Natalie, she said, her voice tight, controlled in a way that reminded me painfully of David. David sent me something. My stomach dropped. Tell me it's not real. I swallowed. Mom, I can explain. You brought men into your house, she said, her voice cracking on the last word, with my grandchildren sleeping upstairs. I made a mistake. You made a choice, she snapped. Multiple choices. Tears blurred my vision again. I don't know what I was thinking. Clearly, she said. The disappointment in her voice was worse than anger. Don't call me again until you figure out who you are, she added quietly, because I don't recognize you. The line went dead. I stared at my phone. It buzzed again. A text from my father. Your mother is devastated. Your children are traumatized. Fix this. Fix this. I let out a hollow laugh that didn't sound like mine. There was no fixing this. By noon, it got worse. David had sent the video to everyone. My family, his family, the mom group. Everyone. At first, my phone filled with messages. Then it stopped. One by one, people disappeared. Blocked, ignored, gone. The same women who had sat across from me, sipping protein shakes and telling me I deserved more, removed me from the group chat. Blocked my number. Vanished. By 2 p.m., I got confirmation of the emergency custody order being filed. By 5 p.m., I realized I hadn't eaten. By 8 p.m., my entire life had been erased. And Ryan? Ryan blocked me at 9 a.m., 12 hours after I brought him into my house. 12 hours after he laughed in my living room. 12 hours after I destroyed everything for him. Gone. Just like that. I sat alone in that motel room, staring at the stained carpet, the thin curtains, the flickering TV I hadn't turned on. And for the first time since the night before, I understood the full weight of what I had done. By sunrise, I hadn't just been caught. I had been removed from my home, from my children, from my life. And there was no way back. The custody hearing was scheduled less than a week later. That's how fast everything moved once the truth was exposed. There was no time to prepare, no time to rebuild a version of myself that looked redeemable, no time to pretend I was anything other than exactly what the footage showed. I sat in that courtroom wearing the only outfit I had managed to pack that didn't look completely wrinkled. My hands rested in my lap, fingers intertwined so tightly they ached. Across the room, David sat beside his lawyer. Calm, composed, untouched. He didn't look at me. Not once. The judge entered, papers shuffled, voices lowered, formalities blurred together into something distant and unreal. And then the screen turned on. I didn't need to look. But I did. Grainy footage filled the monitor. 3:17 a.m. The door opening. Me stepping inside. Ryan behind me. Then the other two men. It played longer than I expected. Long enough for the room to feel smaller. Long enough for my shame to become something physical, like heat under my skin, like pressure behind my ribs. Mrs. Parker brought 3 unknown men into the family residence while minor children were asleep upstairs, David's lawyer said, voice steady, almost clinical. This demonstrates a severe lapse in judgment and a clear disregard for the safety and well-being of the children. My lawyer tried. I'll give her that. My client acknowledges her mistake, she said. But she is still their mother. She has been their primary caregiver for years. This incident, while serious, does not define her entire capacity as a parent. The judge raised a hand. "Ms. Parker," she said, looking directly at me. My throat tightened. "Yes." "Did you bring these men into your home?" The room held its breath. "Yes," I said. "While your children were asleep upstairs?" "Yes." "Were these men known to your children?" "No." "Have you engaged in an ongoing extramarital relationship with one of them?" My voice barely held. "Yes." Silence. Heavy. Final. The judge didn't need anything else. "Temporary custody is granted to the father," she said. "The mother will have supervised visitation twice monthly, 2 hours per visit, pending psychological evaluation and further review." The words landed one by one. Supervised visitation. 2 hours. Twice a month. That was what I had been reduced to. 8 years of motherhood, narrowed down to 4 hours under observation. I nodded. I didn't cry. Not there. There was something about the finality of it that dried everything up inside me. Outside the courtroom, I sat on a bench and stared straight ahead. People passed, voices echoed, life continued. And mine didn't. I ran out of money 2 weeks later. The motel had been temporary. $59 a night, that felt cheap at first, and then impossibly expensive once I realized I had no income, no savings, and no plan. My bank account had started with $800. By Monday, it was frozen. David's lawyer had moved quickly. The account was joint, but it had always been his money, really. His income, his structure, his stability. Without him, it disappeared just as quickly as everything else. I called my mother. She didn't answer. I called my father. He answered once. "You can't stay here," he said before I could even finish asking. "Dad, I don't have anywhere." "You made your choices," he said, his voice heavy. "Now you have to live with them." The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. Then I started calling everyone else. Old friends, college roommates, former coworkers. Every call ended the same way. Awkward pauses, excuses, or worse, honesty. "I saw the video," one of them said. I can't get involved in that." "How could you be so stupid?" That question came more than once. I never had an answer. I ended up staying with Maya. The irony of that didn't hit me until later. She was the one who had encouraged me, the one who told me I deserved more, the one who smiled when I said Ryan's name. "Just a few days," she said when I showed up at her door with my suitcase. "My husband doesn't know everything. Just keep it low-key." Low-key. As if my life hadn't already exploded. For 3 days, I slept on her couch. For 3 days, I tried to pretend this was temporary. That something would shift. That someone would step in. That David might soften. On the 4th day, her husband found out. I don't know how. Maybe social media, maybe word of mouth. But he knew, and he was furious. "You need to leave tonight," he said, standing in the living room with his arms crossed. Maya tried to intervene. "Wait, she doesn't have anywhere—" "I'm not harboring someone like this," he snapped. "Not in my house." "She didn't do anything to you." "She brought 3 men into her home with her kids upstairs," he said, looking directly at me. "That tells me everything I need to know." I couldn't argue, because it told me everything I needed to know too. I packed my bag again. Left at 10 p.m. No plan, no destination. Just gone. The first night I slept in my car was in a Walmart parking lot. It felt surreal at first. Like something temporary. Like camping almost, if you ignored the fear, the discomfort, the humiliation pressing in from every side. I reclined the seat as far as it would go, wrapped my arms around myself, and cried. Not quietly. Not controlled. Just raw, shaking sobs that left me gasping for air. I cried until 4 a.m. And then I stopped. Not because I felt better, but because there was nothing left. 3 weeks after David kicked me out, I had my first supervised visit with Emma and Jake. The building was small, neutral, designed to feel safe and controlled. There was a woman assigned to monitor everything. Middle-aged, stern, observant. She didn't smile, didn't soften, just watched. Every movement, every word. Emma walked in first. 8 years old. My daughter. She stopped a few feet away from me. Didn't run forward. Didn't hug me. Just stood there, looking at me like she didn't quite recognize what she was seeing. "Hi, baby," I said, my voice trembling. She didn't move. "Why aren't you home?" she asked. The question hit harder than anything in that courtroom. "Mommy made some mistakes," I said carefully, "but I love you so much." She glanced at the supervisor, then back at me. "Daddy says you made bad choices," she said. I nodded slowly. "Daddy's right." The words tasted like ash, but I'm trying to fix it. "Can you fix it?" she asked. I looked at her small face, her confusion, her distance, and I realized something I hadn't fully accepted until that moment. Some things don't get fixed. "I don't know," I whispered. Jake was different. 5 years old. Too young to understand details, but old enough to feel absence. He ran to me, wrapped his arms around my waist. "Mommy," he said, pressing his face into me. Relief flooded through me so quickly it almost hurt. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, holding him tight. "When are you coming home?" he asked. I closed my eyes. "Soon," I said. Another lie. Maybe the last one I would ever tell him. Because somewhere deep down, I knew I wasn't coming home. Not ever. The 2 hours passed too quickly, too quietly, too painfully. When it ended, the supervisor stood. "That's time." Emma didn't say goodbye. She just turned and walked away. Jake waved. Small, uncertain. I sat there after they left. Long after the room was empty, trying to breathe, trying to understand how I had taken something so solid and shattered it beyond recognition. A month later, I got a job. Night shift. Warehouse work. Loading boxes. Minimum wage. It wasn't much, but it was something. Something that forced me to move, to function, to survive. I found a studio apartment shortly after. Cheap, run down, in a part of town I would have never considered before. But it had 4 walls, a door that locked, a place to exist. And at that point, that was all I deserved. 6 weeks after everything ended, David filed for separation. His lawyer listed everything: adultery, moral misconduct, endangerment of the children. My lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. "You don't have a case," she said gently. "The evidence is overwhelming." "What about my kids?" I asked. She hesitated. "You'll likely remain on supervised visitation for the foreseeable future," she said. "Maybe more access later if you complete counseling and demonstrate stability." "That's it?" She nodded. "That's generous, considering the circumstances." Generous. I almost laughed. 2 months later, it was finalized. No house, no car, no shared assets. Just 4 hours a month with my children. Supervised. Scheduled. Controlled. And David got everything else. The house. The life. The future. And the right to move on as if I had never been part of it. That was when the silence really set in. Not the loud kind. Not the chaotic collapse of the first few weeks. But something quieter. Heavier. Permanent. The kind of silence that settles into your bones and stays there. Because by then, there was nothing left to lose. 4 months after everything fell apart, Emma asked to stop seeing me. I didn't hear it directly from her. I heard it from the custody evaluator. "She says the visits make her sad," the woman explained, flipping through her notes with the same detached professionalism everyone seemed to adopt when talking about my life now. "She doesn't feel comfortable." Something inside my chest tightened. "Sad?" I repeated. "She said she doesn't understand why you're not home," the evaluator continued, "and being with you reminds her of that." I swallowed. "I can explain to her." "She doesn't want explanations," the woman said gently. "She wants stability." Stability. The very thing I had once called boring. The very thing I traded away. Jake was too young to make that decision. So he still came. But even he had changed. The first time he cried when the supervisor handed him to me, I felt something inside me fracture in a way that didn't heal. "I want Daddy," he said, clinging to her arm instead of mine. "I know, buddy," I said softly, forcing a smile that didn't reach anything real inside me. "But this is our time." "I don't want this time." There are sentences that echo. That one still does. I spent 2 hours sitting across from my own son while he avoided eye contact, played quietly with toys he didn't care about, and counted down minutes he didn't understand. That's what I had become. Not his mother. A scheduled obligation. 6 months after that night, my mother agreed to meet me. A coffee shop. Public. Neutral ground. She looked older. Tired. Like disappointment had weight, and she'd been carrying it too long. "Your father didn't want to come," she said as she sat down. "I understand." She studied me for a moment, as if trying to find something familiar, something worth holding on to. "I told Emma you were sick," she said finally, "that sometimes adults do things they don't understand." I let out a slow breath. "I'm not sick," I said. "I was selfish." She didn't argue. That silence said enough. "David is seeing someone," she added after a moment. My fingers tightened around the cup. "How long?" "A few months." It made sense. David wasn't the kind of man who stayed broken. He rebuilt. Carefully. Deliberately. And this time, without me. "She's good with the kids," my mother continued. "Emma likes her." Of course she did. Emma liked stability. Emma liked consistency. Emma liked people who stayed. I looked down at my coffee. "I'm glad," I said quietly. And I meant it. That was the worst part. I meant it. My mother nodded once. "I'm meeting you because you're my daughter," she said. "But I don't forgive you." The words were steady, unshaken. "Neither does your father." I nodded. "I know." She finished her coffee, stood up, and left. Just like that. No hug. No reassurance. No promise of anything better. 8 months after I destroyed my life, I saw them at a park. By accident. Or maybe not. Maybe some part of me knew their routines by then. David was there. Emma. Jake. And her. The woman my mother had mentioned. She was younger than me, pretty in an effortless way, the kind of woman who looked like she belonged in the life I had thrown away. Emma was holding her hand. Jake was laughing at something she said. They looked happy, not pretending, not adjusting, just whole, like a family. I sat in my car across the street, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers went numb. I told myself I would just watch for a minute, just make sure they were okay. But minutes stretched, and I couldn't look away. David noticed me first. Of course he did. He always noticed things. He said something to her. She nodded, took the kids toward the playground, giving him space, respecting boundaries. Something I had never done. He walked over, knocked on my window. I rolled it down. Hi, I said, my voice barely there. You need to leave, he said. No anger, no hesitation, just instruction. I just wanted to see them. You have scheduled visits, he replied. This isn't your time. My chest tightened. Who is she? He didn't look back at her. Someone who doesn't bring strangers into our home. The words landed clean. Precise. Deserved. Are you serious about her? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. That's not your business. I nodded slowly. Right. Leave, he said, or I'll call the police. I didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't cry. I just drove away. And for the first time since everything happened, I understood something clearly. He wasn't angry anymore. He was done. 10 months after everything ended, Ryan messaged me. Just like that. Hey, long time, how are you? I stared at the screen for a long time. This man, this stranger, this person I had risked everything for. You ruined my life, I typed back before I could stop myself. His reply came quickly. Come on, we were just having fun. My stomach turned. You convinced me to bring you to my house. You made that choice, he replied, not me. I stared at the message, at the simplicity of it, at the truth of it. He wasn't wrong. Not really. Every step, every lie, every decision. Mine. I blocked him. It didn't fix anything, but it closed something. Too late, but final. 1 year later, I attended Emma's birthday. 1 hour. Supervised. At a park. She opened my gift, said thank you, walked away. No hug, no excitement, just politeness. The other woman, Sarah, was there, helping with the cake, organizing games, laughing with the kids. Effortless, natural, present. Everything I used to be. Everything I chose not to be. Jake sat beside me for a while. Are you coming home? He asked. I shook my head. Nobody. Where do you live? An apartment. Can I see it? I hesitated. No, not right now. Why? Because it would show you exactly how far I've fallen. Because it would replace every good memory you have of me with something small and sad and broken. Just not yet, I said. He nodded. Accepted it. Kids always do, until they don't. 14 months after everything ended, David got engaged to Sarah. Emma told me, excited. Happy. Miss Sarah is going to be my new mom, she said. The words should have shattered me. Instead, they settled quietly. Because they were true. You already have a mom, I said softly. Emma looked at me, clear-eyed, honest. You're not there, she said. She is. There was nothing to argue with. 18 months after I cheated, I stopped fighting for more custody. My lawyer said I could try. Petition for unsupervised visits. Push for gradual reintegration. What's the point? I asked. She frowned. You're their mother. I shook my head slowly. No, I said I was. I signed the papers. Accepted the arrangement. Accepted the limit. Accepted the consequence. 2 years later, David married Sarah. Small ceremony. Family. Friends. Emma as a flower girl. Jake carrying the rings. I wasn't there. Of course I wasn't. But I saw the photos. Social media. Smiling faces. A perfect family. Complete. Without me. I stayed in my apartment for 3 days. Didn't go to work. Didn't answer my phone. Just existed in the quiet. Understanding something I had avoided for too long. I didn't just lose my life. I replaced it with something smaller. Lonelier. Permanent. 3 years later, I'm still here. Same apartment. Same night job. Same quiet routine. David is remarried. Happy. Stable. The kind of life I once called boring. Emma is 11 now. She calls Sarah Mom. Jake is 8. He doesn't remember much about when I lived with them. My mother speaks to me sometimes. Carefully. Like I might break. My father doesn't. My sister never did again. The mom group is gone. Maya divorced. Her husband found out everything. Turns out secrets don't stay buried. They just wait. People ask me sometimes, quietly, cautiously, if it was worth it. The attention, the excitement, the feeling of being alive again. I always give the same answer. No, not even close. Because what I traded wasn't just a relationship. It was a life. A real one. With people who loved me. With children who needed me. With a man who trusted me completely. I traded 11 years of stability for 6 months of lies, and I will spend the rest of my life living with what that cost me. If you're reading this and you think your life is boring, if you think you deserve more, if someone is telling you that you're missing out, listen carefully, because I was you once, and I believed them. I believed every word, and it cost me everything.